Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future is Bilingual podcast. Today, I am very excited, and I know that we are going to have probably a long episode because I'm here with Devina, and correct me if I say your name wrong, and we have a lot to talk about. So, Devina, please introduce yourself.
So, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Devina Krishna, academic and linguist. I teach linguistics as an assistant professor in the Department of English at Patna Women's College in India. Currently, I live in the eastern side of India in a state called Bihar. I reside in Patna, which is the capital city of Bihar. Well, academically, I earned a PhD in linguistics from Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, India. And my area of interests are phonetics, phonology, and language documentation.
Those are all very dear to our hearts here at on this podcast. You mentioned you're in the East now. Is that where you're originally from?
Actually, yeah, I was born and brought up here. I originally hailed from Himachal Pradesh. Okay. Yeah, there's a place called Dharamshala in the northern part of India. So I hail from that place. Yeah, but I've been born and brought up in Bihar. Yes.
And of course, I'm sure most of our listeners know India is so linguistically diverse. And,
Exactly.
So tell us more about that because it is important where you're from. I think, in the US, where we're from, we might have an accent, but it's not going to change that much. We can understand each other. There's just a slight twang or something to it, but it's very different in India. So tell us a little bit.
Yeah. So, in my family, I have my mother, my husband, and my son. Now, my mother hails from Jammu region, so she speaks Dogri. Now, my husband hails from Bihar, so his mother tongue is Bhojpuri. Now, I speak Hindi as my first language, and my son's mother tongue is Hindi. So there's a lot of, you can see, there's a completely multilingual atmosphere at my home. And currently, my son he's learning Spanish from an application. He's fond of learning Spanish these days.
That's great.
So there's a craze for learning foreign languages as well. Now, as far as my language journey is concerned, when I say India, which is like, of course, there's diversity of cultures, and growing up in India has been very fascinating. It has been a blessing indeed, because I have been nurtured by rich diversity of cultures. India is a potpourri of diverse cultures. You'll get to see so many people of different cultures living together harmoniously. And there's so many festivals and occasions to celebrate. So as far as my childhood has been there, it has been a colorful childhood. I've never seen a dull moment in life. But still the country kept me grounded. And I'll just say that when you talk about the linguistic diversity, that's the beauty of our country. India, which is a home to so many native languages. Okay. Now, when we talk about the Indian Constitution of India, the Indian Constitution that recognizes 22 of the languages as official, or let's say the scheduled language. Okay.
Wow. 22. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Now, just to, tell a few in number, we have Assamese, Bengali, we have Bodo, Dogri, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, Konkani, Maithili, Malayalam, so many. So I would rather say that the Indian linguistic diversity, which actually, represents so many mother tongues from various language families. So that's fascinating. And interestingly, there are so many language families also. All these languages within the Indian subcontinent, they belong to a particular language family.
Yes, I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Could I interrupt though? I have a quick
sure.
Logistic question.
Always interact.
Okay, sure. Just because things will come up, and if I don't ask, I might forget. So sure. If a country has 22 official languages, like I'm just thinking, Canada is bilingual, and everything that they put is in both French and English. All the signs, everything's available. Does India do that with all 22? Like, how does that, or is it regional? Like, you'll find that language in this region and a different language.
Yeah, actually, it's more, you can say there's more, it's more regional. You know, there are so many states and every state has their regional language. Okay.
I see.
For example, if I live in Bihar, so Hindi is the regional language over there. Of course, there are other varieties also. We have other Bihari languages also, like Bhojpuri, Maithili. But then, you know, Hindi is spoken all over. Okay. And as far as English is concerned, of course, you travel to metro and you can see people conversing with each other in English language. So that's how the trend is. So I can say that it's more like regional. It's like a regional feature over there.
Okay.
But then there's, you know, when we talk about diversity, that just, you know, it just, you know, reminds me to tell you that, you know, different codes have started, you know, emerging, like, you know, out of the mixing phenomena, which I'll talk later also. You know, the socio-linguistic feature of code mixing. Now, this practice has given rise to interesting codes also, like English. Okay. Often I ask my son, which is your favorite language? And he says, English is my favorite language. And what he does, he mixes, you know, parts of English and Hindi.
That's great.
Yeah. And that's English. Similarly, we have so many, you know, codes coming up. So I think that's because there's so much of diversity and there is so much of, you know, one language, you know, there's a lot of mixing taking place. And because of this, these codes are emerging. So that's also another interesting feature.
And that works when both people or both groups of people can understand both. They can easily mix and everybody understands. Nobody's left out.
And you know, and this is a reason. This is just emerging out of, let's say, bilingualism or multilingual atmosphere. Yeah, true.
My other question before I forget is about intelligibility. And this I bring up because I have a student who's in my English class from Pakistan, and she was mentioning how her language of Urdu, she could understand, I think she said, was it Hindi? Now, maybe I'm wrong, but she said like listening she could understand, but the writing was different. So I'm just curious how much intelligibility is
I'll tell
between all of these.
Yeah, that's true. You know, what happens, like Hindi and Urdu, they are mutually intelligible as spoken languages. Okay.
That's so cool. I didn't know that.
It's that they are sometimes considered to be, you know, dialects or registers of a single spoken language, together referred to as Hindi Urdu or the Hindustani language. Okay. And, you know, in Urdu is an Indo-Aryan language and, of course, the national language of Pakistan. And it is closely related to and mutually intelligible with Hindi. Okay. Though a lot of Urdu vocabulary comes from Persian and Arabic, while Hindi contains more vocabulary from Sanskrit. Okay. And then there's a blend of Hindi and Urdu also. Okay. The Hindustani, which we call, it's a dialect of Hindi spoken in Delhi. And, you know, it is used as a lingua franca throughout India. Okay. So I think, yes, this is something which, what happens. So since there's mutual intelligibility, so, you know, if you sat with if you're a Hindi speaker and you sat with a Urdu speaker, so you can easily understand many of the things. Yeah, right.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I misspoke there because I was like, wait, is that the right? And I just wonder, I've seen some of the different scripts just getting more into the language community online and, you know, Malayalam, for example. And I just don't know. It's just so fascinating because there's so many different writing scripts. But if they're mutually intelligible, I think, you know, the way maybe my listeners, you know, were more based in the US and Europe, like Spanish and Portuguese, for example, they're there's more intelligibility. But I think it's also really interesting how one language, like one group of speakers, can understand the other one better, but better than vice versa. Like, for example, they've done tests where Portuguese speakers understand Spanish at a higher percentage than Spanish to Portuguese. Like, so it's not equal. It's not like, oh, they're both 80% intelligible. No.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This is something, that's why I always believe that when we talk about this subject, linguistics, I find it so fascinating. And this is something which just urges me to, you know, explore more and more in this area. I find it very fascinating as a subject. Yes.
Yeah, me too. I could think about this all the time.
Yeah. So I was just, telling you about the mother tongues and the language families. Okay. And I would also like to tell something interesting about language family. That is, there's one language family which is represented in the Andaman Islands. I don't know whether you know about the Andaman Islands. You must have heard. And that is perhaps the oldest in the world.
Ooh,
To
older than
elaborate
Sanskrit?
further, yeah, I'll just tell you. See, I would say that India represents 6 distinct language families. Okay, we have Indo-Aryan language family, where we have it's densely populated branch. Okay, all these languages belong to, like Hindi, Bangla, Marathi. All these languages belong to the Indo-Aryan language family. Then we have Dravidian family, where you have Malayalam, Telugu, Tamil, all these. Then we have Austroasiatic, Tibeto-Burman, Tai-Kadai, and Andamanese language. So you can imagine, you can visualize the multiplicity of languages. Okay. Yes. And yeah.
Oh, it's very, it's surprisingly rich. And I think it's just also new to us. There's so many words that you might be saying that my listeners have never heard. They maybe have never heard of Tamil or
yes.
Marathi, but it's worth delving into, right? We're all so blessed. We have the internet and we can now very easily Google.
Exchange information, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth, look at it. Even just for this, like I was mentioning earlier, the scripts, I find it so beautiful and fascinating. And we're very it's not known. It's not well known in at least the states where I'm from. Like, we don't know that much about. We know that there's Arabic and Hebrew and Russian script, and then we don't really know much beyond that. And I think it is a shame, and I think we definitely need to open up our minds more. That
true. We really need to orient people, because it's very important. And the important thing is that if you don't speak a language, it won't exist. So and that is the reason, the whole thing just brings me to the issue of language endangerment. And I'm also working in the area of language endangerment. I'm also trying to document a few vulnerable languages of Bihar, though it's a very it's a mini project. But then we are making some, as documentary linguists, we are trying to make some effort to preserve the languages in the form of records. Okay. So because, since there's linguistic diversity, which is a part and parcel of our, let's say, life, but then any loss in linguistic diversity is a loss in the vitality and resilience of the whole web of life.
Yes.
And of course, India has a legacy of multilingualism. And I think it's our duty to, preserve our languages, and the best way is to speak that language. Because if you don't pass that language to the other generation, to the newer generation, they won't be acquainted with that.
Yes.
And it's fine that English is important for our growth, but I think we should also give the same weightage to our mother tongues as well.
Yes, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. And of course, you're in India and I'm in the US, so I'm looking at this from a different angle, in that there are many people from India that moved to the US, and I just think we, meaning the rest of us that live in the US, we need to recognize, we need to even just open up our mind to know that it's not just Hindi. There's lots of languages, and like as a teacher, I could have a student whose first language is Tamil. I should at least have a knowledge of that, what my student's home language is, and look into it. And I feel like it's not only underrepresented, and there's no knowledge about it, but it's almost like people don't even make the effort, that they don't care. If it was Spanish, they would say, "Oh, you speak Spanish, how wonderful, that's such a cool." But because it's a lesser known language, like, we don't even ask, right? Like, we see that it's an Indian kid. We can visually see that you have, right, a certain like skin color, and that we know, we've seen your parents, but we don't ask. We don't, like, why? We should know, right? We should celebrate that.
Very true. Yes, absolutely.
There should be more celebration that, this kid speaks Russian at home, and this kid speaks Tamil, and this kid speaks, like, it shouldn't be that we're only putting a few languages that are internationally recognized on a pedestal, and everybody else don't talk about it. We don't, it doesn't matter. we're not going to ask you. So I think, you know, as my role as a teacher, I now teach adults, but I'm thinking I've worked in schools, and I think it just needs to be more normalized. Let's talk about it. And let's, you know, the whole, when I learned about translanguaging, it was like light bulb in my head, like, oh my gosh, yes, like languages are not, so I've have a post on Instagram, and I will refer to that, because it's a complicated thing, I think, even trying to explain it and when different people talk about it. But like, it's the idea that languages are not separate in the mind of a multilingual. So anyone listening to this podcast is probably working on being bilingual, or already bilingual or multilingual. And like, we separate them in life. We say this is French, this is English, but in our minds, if you speak those two languages, they're not separate. It's very messy, and they all coexist in your head. And that's why, you know, code switching and playing with language and language puns, it's so fun when you're multilingual, because to you, it's all one, right? It's all just part of your, and I love the fact of mixing languages in class and welcoming that and encouraging students to use their other languages, you know, because especially, I mean, the population of students in the US that have a different first language other than English at home, it's only rising, right? For the past couple decades, like, it's been steadily rising. So we should recognize that. We should allow students to do some of their work in their home language, and then, you know, work with partners, and, you know, they can translate it into English to eventually have the final copy be something that their teacher can read. But we don't need to say English only. You can't even speak or think in your language. That is so harmful and not healthy. That's not how our brains work. I can't turn off my French brain. Like, even the other night, I was teaching an English class, and I wrote the word percentage incorrectly. I wrote it as French, P-O-U, and then my colleague was like, no, it's P-E. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally wrote that the French way. Like, my brain just confused, you know, like, it's messy. I think being bilingual, multilingual, it's not clear cut like we've always thought. And it's not, you're bilingual 50% this, 50% that. No way. Nobody's perfect, or 100%. You don't speak anything perfectly. We don't, I mean, that's just not how humans are. And how do you see translanguaging? Because I know it's a kind of a buzzword in academia, but not really well known elsewhere. So being a doctor of linguistics, I would love your take and how it's perceived over in India, which is such a different linguistic situation than the US.
Yeah, exactly. No, you know, when we talk about translanguaging, now this term translanguaging can be boiled down to using multiple languages together, right? And it's a framework. So we define it as a framework for understanding how individuals use languages. So of course, it is a practice, a language practice, you know, practiced among bilingual people, or let's say multilingual people. Now, this whole idea of translanguaging. So I think that it's completely fine to, to involve yourself in this whole idea of translanguaging. Okay, it has its own benefits. Okay, of course, we can say that it's like it's a new term for many of the people, and what happens is you're switching between the languages. Okay, and you're trying to, you know, maximize your communicative potential. So I would rather say that it is, of course, part and parcel of multilingualism these days. It's in trend. It's a flexible multilingualism, and teachers, you know, they in classroom, they involve themselves in translating between languages, or, you know, mixing words, expressions from different languages, and it has its own, you know, benefits. So I support translanguaging in the classroom. Of course, there are many times, you know, what happens, you know, there are students who are not able to understand, for example, English. Okay, and maybe because of they have come from a different rural background, they don't understand. So you know, teachers are helping them, and they speak to the students in Hindi language, so that they are because they are aware with that language, and the job becomes easier. So I think, this whole concept of translanguaging it has its own advantages. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And that is a really good point that, yeah, it's just, I feel that it's so, what's the word? Hypocritical, because English speakers, right? Like if you're just an English speaker, you're monolingual, you want everybody to speak English to you. If you were taking a class learning Spanish, French, something, you'd want them to explain in English. However, when you have a student in your class that is, not a native English speaker learning, like they're, oh, well, you should just learn English. It's this whole, like, it's so hypocritical. And I think the biggest issue is, to me, like, it's someone who is maybe monolingual, never has studied a language, because you don't know what it's like. You don't know what that person is feeling when they're not understanding or frustrated they can't say what they want to say. So I think everybody needs to study a language and feel that, because it will make you so much more empathetic to what that child is feeling, or what that adult who is having a hard time communicating is feeling. It's really just a lack of empathy, because they've never been in this situation. And especially, as an English speaker where the whole world speaks English, they go anywhere, they expect everybody to speak English to them. And it's just that's the biggest one for me, is like, we need to get rid of that. Somebody else, not me, somebody said monolingualism is like, I can't think of the English word, analfabetismo. It's illiteracy of like the 21st century. That like, like being monolingual, that's like being illiterate back in the day. Like everybody should speak at least 2 languages. So yeah, hopefully that's my whole goal with this podcast, is to talk about raising bilingual kids and kind of give us a space in a community, because at least myself, like, I only had a few friends that were also doing it, but I know people around the world are doing it, right? There's millions of us raising bilingual kids, but we don't have a way to connect. And I wanted to hear all the stories and see what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah, it's a great initiative. I really appreciate your, effort. You're doing such a wonderful job. Because, when we talk about monolingualism also, so I think that monolingual speakers, they are not, as exposed to other cultures. And, at the end of the day, we all want to maintain good relationships, strong bonds. And I think this whole idea of, being bilingual or multilingual really help us in achieving that. And since I was just talking about translanguaging, so I would also like to add the point that, as a resource for both teachers and students, translanguaging has many educational benefits. So this is something which validates multilingualism. So I think we should view it as a very important asset, rather than, rather viewing it that as a problem.
And you said it, it's about flexibility, it's about maximizing potential, and not limiting. And I think there's also a misconception that sometimes teachers will hear an example, like you said, a teacher in India uses Hindi to kind of get all the students who aren't understanding English. But a teacher would say, well, what if I don't speak another language? But it's not about that. There's so many ways to include translanguaging practices, like allowing students a dictionary in their language, allowing students with the same home language to maybe sit and work together and talk about the activity, just to have that ability to dialogue about it in a language they're more comfortable in, and then come back to the group, right? Like we do group work all the time. Think, pair, share. We do that. It's a common practice, but letting them do it in a language they're more comfortable in. It doesn't require the teacher to have any special linguistic skills. And I think that's another misconception, that, well, I don't speak Spanish, so how am I supposed to help them? And it's right, like, it's not about you. It's about the student. It's about the student being able to use their full potential, their full, what is the term that's used? Like the full linguistic repertoire, your entire linguistic repertoire. So all the languages that you know should be able to be tapped into. And especially academia. Academics is so difficult. I'm taking a class right now focused on teaching English.
So you can understand how challenging it is at times.
Well, I mean, we take it for granted. Like I'm taking this class about English language learners. So it's specifically how to help children in K through 12. And it's I teach adults, but it's a requirement for me to take this course. And I mean, it's so challenging when we think about the tasks that we ask a student. My teacher gave the example of, we're teaching photosynthesis, but the student doesn't even know the difference between a leaf and a root. How can we explain photosynthesis when we need those basic concepts of plants? You know, we need to go a few steps back in order to go to these complex terms like feudalism and photosynthesis, right? We can't expect them to be able to catch up like that. So yeah, it's very, we're in a challenging time in education because, you know, it's just a reality, and we need to use all of our skills and all of our, you know, all the available methods, right? And this is just another available method. So I think it needs to be more well-known, more talked about. It's a buzzword.
It's time that,
in academia,
it's time
but not
that, you know, we should accept translanguaging as an efficient and effective teaching and learning technique, right?
Yeah. But there's just so much confusion around it, and there's people think, oh, it's just code mixing, and no, they're not the same, and it's for sure. Well, I think hopefully, you know, little by little it'll get to be more well known, and more common practice. So I'm hopeful. Tell us more about your son. You mentioned that his first language is Hindi.
Yes.
And then that's also your first language. But what is it like in the household? Because you mentioned your husband has a different first language. Does everybody speak Hindi, or is that an assumption I'm making?
No, the point is, see, like we all speak Hindi most of the times. And, you know, as we always say that sociolinguistically also, language changes from domain to domain, right? So as soon as we're in the household, within the family, we are interacting with each other in Hindi most of the times. Well, we can mix also. Like with my son, I mix also. There's a lot of mixing that takes place because he loves to mix. So I also mix with him. We are mixing Hindi, we are mixing English together. And while I'm teaching at my college with the students, I mostly converse in English. And if I'm in the marketplace, it's mostly Hindi. Okay. Because the place where I live, you know, especially if you go to you go to a supermarket, you go to a bank, most of the people, they interact in Hindi. So there's, you know, the language is shifting from domain to domain, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How old is your son? Did you mention?
He is 12 years old. Yes.
Okay.
So his first tongue or his mother tongue has been Hindi, and because that was the language he has been hearing, you know, receiving the input from the environment. And of course, English is a second language, and he is also, you know, he has little exposure in Sanskrit also because he has Sanskrit as third language in school.
Oh, okay.
So yes. So he's learning Sanskrit as well, and these days, you know, his recent passion is to learn, you know, Spanish and French. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
Yes, he's doing that side by side.
A budding linguist in your house.
Yeah.
As we say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Right?
Exactly. So I'm happy that, because, you know, he also understands the importance of being multilingual. Okay. So this whole, you know, process of when we talk about language acquisition. Okay. So I'll just, you know, talk a bit about language acquisition. You know, there's something called child language acquisition. Okay, how children acquire, you know, language. So, you know, children, you know, they undergo different stages, different milestones to achieve this whole process of language acquisition. Okay, so when a child is born, okay, you know, the first thing the child does is crying. Okay. That's how the child is trying to communicate. And then that stage is followed by a later stage called the cooing stage. And then we have the babbling stage where the child is producing reduplicative structures or syllables like papa, baba, mama. This is something which is universal. Then comes the one word stage, and then, you know, then the two word stage and sentences and things like that. So this whole, you know, idea of how, you know, child achieves different milestones through the whole process of child language acquisition is very fascinating. So when my son was born, I could, you know, see, you know, there might be some variation because some children, they speak, you know, there's some delay, you know, they take some time to speak. Yeah, they take time to pick up, but some they start speaking very, in a very initial stage only. So that just varies from child to child. But this whole idea of child language acquisition, how children acquire that input. So some people say, like experts say, that they acquire from the environment they receive, or from their caregivers, their mothers, parents, elders. Okay. And then, there's this innatist view which says that children are born with this language acquisition device. Okay.
Universal Grammar by Chomsky.
Right,
Some of the listeners might know.
Yes, yes.
Noam
So
Chomsky.
this whole area is quite fascinating. Okay. So, yes. So I think multilingual kids, it's, they have their own charm, and, they have their, they enjoy certain benefits, which I'll say. So I think it's good to learn as many languages. As a linguist, I'll always say that, learn as many languages as you can.
Yes.
Because it's going to benefit you in any form, right?
Yeah, and I think having the connection, like you mentioned, there's a certain like personal connection to a language. It makes it even more special and stronger bond, which is, I think, a lot of people here listening are, might think that like, oh, well, we want to pass this language on because it's our heritage language. This is our. So how did that play out in your family with your own mother's native language and then your husband's native language? You didn't introduce those?
Yes. Now, so the interesting part is that I've been listening to my mother, speaking her language with her family members and with her mother also. So that's Dogri, and that's spoken in parts of Jammu and Kashmir and parts of Himachal Pradesh and some other areas as well. And interestingly, I can understand little Dogri, though I cannot write that, but I can understand little. So it's a very, it's something which I just it's a very, basic kind of Dogri I understand. But then, because I have been a linguist, I'm more into, unearthing the structures of, the language. Yes, I'm more into, trying to find the grammar of the language. So I have worked a lot in this area. So even, I've published a lot of research in the area of Dogri linguistics. And one such research has been, I went to this South Asian Roundtable Linguistic Conference, and that took place in France in 2019, when I went and presented my research work there, and I got it published also. So that was on, Dogri tones, lexical tones. It's just like if you see, like, like Chinese has tones and Thai has tones. Similarly, Dogri has lexical tones also. And that was my area of research.
Wow.
And there are many languages in the Indian subcontinent, like Punjabi, and there are languages in northeastern part of India, where there are lexical tones. And interestingly, I could find the tones in my mother's mother tongue also. So I'm more into research, but yes, I understand few, basic Dogri, and I can, I have really worked on unearthing the structure or grammatical structure of the language, which has been my area of fascination, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting how it kind of influenced where your research went.
Yes.
And then what about with your husband? Did he want to pass on his language, or did he say we should focus on Hindi?
At times he's he's speaking his regional language, and my son listens to him, and he can understand few words. So it's something that he's just not, he's not completely alien to that. He understands few words and he can say few words. So he understands and he picks up, few sentences, because all these languages are Indo-Aryan. They belong to the Indo-Aryan language family. So there's mutual intelligibility, and you can easily understand many of the things. So it's not that difficult also.
That's
and
good.
Of course, as far as I'm there, I am been concerned. So I'm also working on one of the projects related to these, related to the vulnerable languages of Bihar. Okay, because now we have less speakers left to speak such languages. So what I thought that, I should collect data, I should document it, so that the future generations can benefit, and let's save these vulnerable languages from becoming, critically endangered and so on. Yeah.
Yes, no, it's super important, and something that unfortunately we don't really talk about in the US. I don't think enough, and we don't even talk about the regional languages that were here before we came. It's kind of just washed over, like everybody speaks English, but like
English, right?
But in Europe they do. There's much more of a movement with the regional languages. Like I never knew until I moved to France, like, oh my God, there's all these regional languages, and there's even bilingual schools, to teach the children. I was in Brittany, France, specifically, where they're very strong opinion, strong opinion. It's like the Basque, where they are very proud of their language, and it's a Celtic language, so it's similar to like Irish, even though it's in France over the channel. But yeah, I think it's something we need to think about, and even probably, I mean, there's so much work to be done in the US to even recognize the different tribes and what their languages are. It's not looked at enough, which I think is different. In India, I think you're more just conscious of that. Like you recognize this is a region, this region has its own language. Like we've ignored it for so long.
Yes,
we're blind.
So
we're blind
that,
to it.
I'm so happy that you are so candid about it. Yes. So
yeah, well, there's just so much work to be done.
We need to pay attention to these issues as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm saying it myself, like, I don't even know what tribe is the land I'm on. The only place we know it is like the casinos, like Mohegan Sun. There's a Mohegan tribe. But it's really, it's not well recognized. And I noticed it because I was living in Canada, and every time they're a little bit just more proactive about it. And every time we were starting, at least the University of Ottawa, where I was studying, every time that we started a meeting, even though it was online, they said like a small prayer, and it was in the language of where Ottawa is located. And it's to thank the ancestors, and we recognize we're on this land. And they were just I was like, whoa, like we've never done that in any university I've been to in the US. It was just very interesting. And they have their own troubled past with the indigenous people, and there was awful schools and trying to take people's languages away. And I just think we need to talk about things. If we don't want to repeat them, then we need to recognize it and make our peace with it and move on, right? We can't just brush it under the rug and pretend this didn't happen. But I recognize myself that I'm ignorant to it. Like, and I think for some of us, I mean, at least for me, it's kind of overwhelming. There are maps where you can see, but there's just so many tribes. I mean, the US is huge, right? So
it's huge.
Oh my, right. And it's not an exact line the way the states are cut out, it's like they're kind of all over. And it's very complicated. And I think it's one of those topics. It's like touching a wound. Like people don't want to talk about it. Like, okay, yeah, we did something bad. Like, let's not talk about it. It wasn't me. It was my ancestors, right? So I just think but it's an important concept in the world. Like there's languages being lost every day, and I don't even know where to start with it. It's such a big problem. I don't even know how to tackle it.
Yeah, that's true, because this whole idea of endangerment is crucial. And I think, as I said, that we need to work in the area of language preservation. As a common man, one can, the best part is that you just speak your language. That's it. Just to make it alive all the time. Right.
Yeah, but it's so much easier said than done, right? Our kids sometimes resist us.
Yeah, sometimes... I know. Practically, things are so different,
yeah. Which it all sounds so nice, right? Like just speak to your kid and they'll learn it. But there's resistance. There's pressure from school that they need whatever the school language is, right? Like, well, they need to be fluent in this language.
True, right.
So, and then there's just the challenge of being human.
Yeah.
Right. We work, we're tired. We don't have that much time at the end of the day. And it's just, it's challenging. What for you has been the biggest challenge with raising your son to be bilingual or multilingual at this point?
Yeah, of course, there has been, challenges also. There has been some, sunny side also, but along with the challenge also. And we know that when we are actually you know giving them a bilingual or a multilingual exposure, so uh, there are challenges. Okay, now this multilingual children, they are exposed to triple the amount of vocabulary, or let's say so it sometimes it just takes a little longer to soak in. Okay, because they get a lot of exposure, so there might be some confusion. Okay, so the mixing languages issue crops up. Okay, and it is not uncommon for children to start of a sentence in one language and finish in another language. Okay, so children, they tend to use whichever words they know to express themselves. So therefore, if they lack the vocabulary or grammar in one language, they may just fill in the gaps with another language. Now what happens is, like, this is something I myself faced, and I think many of us Indians might be facing. My son also faced. What happens is, like, sometimes as speakers of like English, which is our second language, for example. So many of the children, I'm giving you a very general, general opinion. I'm giving a general opinion. So what they cannot express themselves in the second language correctly. Why it is happening? Because what they are doing is they are actually translating. If they have some idea and they want to express themselves in English, so children might be facing difficulty. So they are actually translating that sentence. So these are some challenges that happen simultaneously. Okay, and what happens is, like, children tend to use whichever words they know to express themselves. Therefore, if they lack the vocabulary or grammar in one language, as I said, they may just fill in the gaps with another from another one. So we can, but as parents, we can correct the child. Okay, this is what happened with me also, like with my son. So I was correcting my son and repeating the forms in the right manner, and also encouraging, if wherever he is going wrong, I used to tell him, like, this is the right preposition you have to use. And my child also this gives preference to sometimes the dominant language, so I try to add more exposure to the non-preferred language also. Okay, that's important. And yeah, so it's good that we need to correct them from time to time. That's important. Yes, other than that, I think he improved his language skills, especially English language skills, I'll say, through internet also, because children they are so much glued to technology that in some way or the other, if they're using it in the right manner, it is also giving them benefits. So he benefited a lot from that. Yes.
Yep, I agree. And I think a lot of parents use TV in the target language. There's so many different ways. Games.
Yeah, in some way or the other,
something
there
fun.
are some benefits also, right? Like the vocabulary is, improving, the grammar is improving. So that just depends. But yes, that has to be done. That has to be done in moderation, right?
And I was thinking about, you were saying some negative transfer can sometimes happen, where the dominant language, the kid will translate that language structure but into the new language, and it doesn't always work. And that happens with all learners, right? Any age. That happens with my adult learners.
The problem is always there. Yeah, the mother tongue interference is always
interference, there. Exactly. Right. Where, but yeah, my son would do that too, and the word order in English would be a little off because he was using Polish structure. And you just kind of gently encourage them, the way we would do to even a monolingual child who says "eated." We would say, "Oh, ate." Oh, you ate the right. And we just gently kind of nudge them along and hope that after a couple exposures they'll pick it up.
And interestingly, like, for example, the children, they also they're involved in certain things like meta thesis, the transposition of elements. They are just exchanging one element with the other, one sound with the other. Like the animal becomes aminal, right?
Oh yeah, so, those are so cute.
So that happens in India also. So that's something which is universal, and we need to point them, we need to correct them. And I think all these things constantly motivate us also, and to them also, to do better and better, right?
Yeah, and children have that growth mindset, if all is going well, right? They'll just like, okay, like, and they're not children are great because they're not
True.
afraid to talk. They're not afraid to make mistakes. And
Yes.
they usually don't take it very personally. You know, my kids are still young. So maybe, I think probably soon, maybe around 6, 7, he might start taking it more personally. But like young kids, right? They don't take it personally if you correct them. They're just like, okay.
Right.
They move
exactly.
on. So that's very different than teaching with adults, right? Like it's a whole different mindset because, like you mentioned, the way a child learns language is very different from an adult learning a second language. So we need to keep those things in mind. You know, you can't tell your child, well, when I learned my second language at 20, like, no, that's not gonna, you can't compare your 2-year-old and yourself when you were 20, right? Those are two different things.
Absolutely.
What has been one of the best parts? You mentioned there's been many sunny moments, maybe an event or a tradition or something that means a lot to you that your son was able to enjoy because he's multilingual.
Yeah, there has been like not one event, but yes, couple of moments, I should say. Yeah, in couple of moments. And it's only when you come across such events, you actually, you feel that your child is, has acquired linguistic skills. Like in India, if I'm talking to him in Hindi all the time, because he might be interacting with his teachers and friends in English at school. But if I am talking to him in Hindi and he's talking to me in Hindi, I don't know about his English structures, how is he using. The such thing happened in France when I went to Paris in 2019 for the conference. And there I could see surprisingly, with everybody he was interacting, and he could speak in, the English, the kind of English he was speaking. It was all grammatically correct. And there he could also get some French words, okay, because the basic French words he had learned in advance before going to France. He had learned some basic words in French, and used to utter those words. So if somebody's telling him bonjour, so he used to reply bonjour, or
I didn't know he went
like,
with you. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he went with me. My husband was there. My mother was there.
How
so
lovely.
It was like a, family come educational trip. So he could, use all the French words interestingly and very, grammatical structures, the correct English. So it was such, fun to see my child using those words in a country where French is spoken, by majority of people, or let's say English also. So that was that was, one area where that was one moment when I realized that he's really using his linguistic structures very well. So yeah,
you see him blooming.
Yeah, it gives you, a lot of satisfaction that the children are on the right track. They are learning, they're programmed well. They're speaking correct English. That gives you happiness, internal happiness. So and he learned, he learned some French words in advance, like I told you. So when he had to thank someone, he would say merci, and other French words.
Yeah, he made an
French
effort.
words. Yeah. So he really made a list in advance. So, these are things that motivate us also as parents. And I think we need to, but the important thing is that we as parents need to give them that environment also.
Yes.
Because I think
I was going to say that.
Yes, the kind of environment you live in, that really affects our children. So since at my home, it's a teaching environment. I'm into teaching. My husband is also into education. So what happens is that, the child gets that environment. My father was also in teaching. So I got that environment when I was a child. My parents were in the teaching, area. So I think your environment really makes you, and that, affects you a lot, whether it is your linguistic skill also. So you received, input from the environment, and then it just, becomes the part of your cognitive growth as well. Yes.
And it goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning about how the language you use in your life in India is the domain specific. It depends on the domain. And same with our children. We can provide, we can be creative and find a way to provide that other domain, that other environment. Like if they're resisting speaking, let's say, oh, they don't want to speak Spanish to me, like they know I speak English. Okay, well, let me find a Spanish play group. Let me start one if there isn't one, right? Like there's probably other parents in the area that would want to come. And that's been popping up. I've seen a lot of that popping up on the Facebook and the internet, where parents are creating these little play groups. It's free, right? Because we can't all afford a trip to go to our desired country to immerse our children, and even a trip like that is temporary, right? But a thing that we can do weekly, or sign them up for a class if we have that option, or just send them to grandma and grandpa and have them like, okay, you're gonna have to speak the language because grandma and grandpa speak that language.
Absolutely.
There's ways to be creative, and even even without that, most of us have Netflix. We can put on the kids show in Netflix, and yeah, they might whine, but you can say, okay, well, you're either watching Paw Patrol in Polish or you're not watching Paw Patrol. Like we are able to be the adult and set boundaries, and probably our kid is going to choose, okay, I'd rather watch it than not. And like we can set up those environments, and they don't have to be super cost heavy and like difficult to do. And of course they can be. Trips are amazing, like summer camp type things, those are great. But yeah, there's always opportunities, I think, if you can look for them. And yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really interesting that you hadn't really heard your son until that moment, like using his full English. Like, wow,
very satisfying moments. Exactly.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure like he probably didn't even think anything of it, and like you were there like, oh wow.
Yes,
but
exactly.
For him, he uses it every day.
Satisfaction as parents, we receive that, seeing your children doing so well, and exactly.
Yeah, that's what every parent wants, and we hope to raise nice kids, right? Like no matter what language they speak, that they can go around the world. And just that fact that he looked things up, right? He was being very conscious that I know they speak French, even though I speak English, and they probably speak English. Like I want to use some French words. Like that's such a great.
Yes, that was a good initiative on his part.
Very good. Yes. No, that's what we hope. That's what we hope all our kids to just be conscious that you can't expect everybody to speak to you in English.
Right.
That's the message for the US. So Devina, I like to end every episode asking our guests to teach us a word or a phrase in one or more of their languages. And so, yes, I would be so honored if you would teach us a phrase.
So can I teach you some idiom? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So in Hindi, there's this interesting idiom. It's called tall kar.
Okay.
मुंह से शब्द तौल कर मुंह से शब्द निकालना.
Okay. I'm not going to try and say it. I know Elle does that on her podcast.
I'll just tell you the meaning of that.
Yes, please.
That means, you have to take out words from your mouth very carefully, You have to express after thinking a lot, You just cannot express anything like that. You have to be very wise, You have to think a lot before you take words from your mouth. So, okay. So that's called tall kar. That is related to measuring. Muh is the mouth, shabd is word, and nikalna is to take out. So you have to be, very carefully
measured,
while picking up words from. Right. So that's something, This was just related to a language podcast. So I just thought of this idiom that came to my mind.
No, that's great. I love idioms. We love idioms, proverbs, all those things.
So
things
that's a very popular Hindi idiom. Tol kar muh se shabd nikalna.
Now, would it be used to like maybe tell a child like, oh, you should be careful what you're saying?
Yeah, you should be careful while saying things out. Yeah.
Kind of like a warning.
You should not be you should not say irrelevant stuff, or you should not, try to hurt anyone. You should be careful while taking things out from your mouth. Yes.
Ah, very nice. I don't even know.
It's like a teaching also.
Yeah, it's kind of a teaching tool. I guess we say think before you speak. That's maybe the best English equivalent.
Think before, exactly.
Think before you speak. But it's
true.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you so much. It's wonderful. Now, where can people find you on the internet if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, I think I can just tell my email ID. So it is Krishna.Devina. I'll just spell it. It's all these are small letters.
And I can put it in the show notes so people can just click easy.
It's Krishna, Krishna.Devina, Devina @gmail.com. And I have some of my, if they just type my name, Devina Krishna, and they type linguistics, so they'll see my work, also research, also in the area of linguistics, from which they can benefit.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
I'm available on Google Scholar, ResearchGate. My works are available. And some of my works are like, they are upcoming. So I keep posting them also, or they get published, on the web also. So I think it's easy to access. Yeah, it's easy to access.
Okay, wonderful. And I will link up where we can find you, your ResearchGate, all those wonderful resources.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Yes, and it was such a pleasure learning more. I feel like
I think I should thank you so much, because it's fine that we are giving you information related to all these issues, but then you have built up this platform which is so fascinating, and it is giving us the opportunity or chance to express ourselves on so many of these linguistic issues. So I think I should thank you more.
No, it's equally going back to you. Thank you for being part of it.
It's mutual from both the sides.
There we go. And yeah, now you're part of the community. So thank you for joining and telling us all about India and all the different things we can learn. I mean, I need to spend maybe 3 more hours Googling and finding out more, because there's just so much to learn. And so, yes, use our resources. Look up Devina's research. There's so much to be found. And your research is in English, I'm assuming.
Yes, so it's in linguistics. Yeah.
But it's in English.
Yes, it's all in English, so they can read it. I think there won't be any problem in reading the stuff. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, and I look forward to catching back up and maybe chatting again about another topic. Maybe some new research will come up. You can contact me.
To, more issues in future, and it was wonderful. We could touch so many issues in such short span time.
Yes.
And yes.
Well, thank you, and thank you
of the show. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.
All the best to you.
You're welcome anytime to come back and update us on your research.
Sure. I'll be in touch with you.
Wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.